You are listening to the BBNI podcast, Journeys of Faith, Leadership and Life.
Welcome to the BBNI podcast. I'm Deborah Pearce, one of the engagement officers here at BBNI. Our podcast covers journeys of faith, leadership and life. And today I'm delighted to have Lynsey from LCC Community Trust into the podcast with us today. So welcome, Lynsey.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Just to start off, would you like to introduce yourself? Just tell us a wee bit about who you are, maybe yourself, home life, faith and church life, just to give us an intro.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Lynsey Caqeua. So I am Lisburn born and bred, but my husband is not. He's from Fiji, hence my surname.
Lovely.
So I'm married, mum of two boys, two teenagers, 13 and 14. One's at Enston, one's at Methody, and they both play rugby. So that's always interesting for us.
Busy Saturdays then.
Yeah, definitely. And and we're all involved in our local church, Lisburn City Church.
Okay, brilliant.
And we all kind of take part in that. And the boys they're going away for a youth weekend with the church this weekend. My husband is part of the worship team, and I'm do a bit of speaking and help out in some of the teams and serving teams in church. So
busy then.
Yeah, keeps us busy.
Yeah, and teenage boys, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Busy house, lots of food, I'm sure. And yeah.
Oh, always.
Yeah, brilliant. And then, so in June 2021, Lynsey, you received a BEM in the Queen's Birthday Honours. So well deserved and congratulations. I know it's a few years later, but well done.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us about that, how that came about? And yeah,
so that was all like it was very out of the blue for us. So obviously, like the year before had been COVID.
Okay.
And like most people were furloughed or working from home, whereas we were deemed an essential service.
Yeah.
So we were working the whole way through. Okay. So I still have like very vivid memories of some of my friends who were working from home.
Yeah.
But really like they didn't actually have a lot to do. So they used to come in and help in the food bank.
Okay.
But only whenever the weather was bad.
Okay.
So obviously, I don't know if you remember, that summer was
the March was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we had
really
such
sunny,
good weather, and my friend used to come in on the duller days with this amazing tan, and I was like pale as anything because I'd spent the whole summer just like in a dark room packing up food boxes and getting them out. And so at that stage, like we were during that very first lockdown, we were issuing about 400 food parcels a week through the centre, and the mayor at that stage was at the start of COVID was Alan Given.
Okay.
And I remember he had come in and he had like kind of asked about what we were doing, and then like asked one of our trustees a little bit more information about me. And we didn't really think anything of it at the time.
Right.
And then it was only like I think it was the Christmas, the New Year's honours list that it was actually announced, and it came out, and it was like, oh, you've actually got a BEM. So it was like, oh my goodness. So then, because then we were like, well, we didn't actually know, and then it was only when we thought back lovely, and we asked him, and he was like, put your name in for it. So it was brilliant.
Well, that's lovely. Brilliant. Okay, so you're also the CEO of LCC Community Trust.
Yes.
And maybe for those of our listeners today who don't know anything about, or maybe haven't heard about the trust, can you just tell us maybe about that, maybe how it started and the work sort of roughly that they're involved in?
Yeah, so we originally started as a church in 1999, and actually our original name was Kingdom Life City Church.
Okay.
And then I suppose it was about 2012, 2013, we really as a church felt like we wanted to do more in the community.
Okay.
And so we met with like different church leaders and our own church family, and kind of really felt God was calling us into the realm of like food bank and emergency food support.
Okay.
So we connected with the Trussell Trust, who obviously are like the wider food bank network across the UK.
Yeah.
And in July 2013 we started Lisburn Foodbank.
Okay.
And then I suppose really it was a journey from there where we were issuing out these emergency food parcels, but we realised as we started to connect with other charities and churches and groups across the city that there was still like this bit of a gap almost, and this need around that kind of food support and just that very grassroots hand-holding journey with people who had found themselves in difficult times. I think there's a whole breakdown of like that kind of family unit and the family support. And what we find, Lisburn is very central. Like, we know people from Lisburn, you don't leave Lisburn anything more than 15 minutes, you're like, oh, a bit far. So it's like people often, we find, they've moved to Lisburn, you know, to be closer to work, or maybe, you know, met at uni and then we're both from separate areas, and that was kind of the in between. You know, we're the centre of the universe here, aren't we? So so what we find is actually a lot of the time the people we're supporting, they don't have family nearby, and so when something happens and they start to struggle, they don't have someone that they can turn to, and that's when they turn to us. And so we kind of went on this journey then over the next few years where we actually then decided we rebranded, and the church became Lisburn City Church at that stage because it was Lisburn Foodbank, and then we became LCC Community Trust as our overall organisation. And then even since that we have started other projects. So 2017 we started our social supermarket, and then just last year 2023 we were the first ever community money advice centre for Northern Ireland. So they're all across kind of mainland Scotland, Wales, but we were the first one for Northern Ireland.
Fantastic,
exciting.
Did a great work. Okay, so in the food bank then, sort of what would maybe a typical day like, or maybe it's completely different every day?
A typical day, that hard to describe, but I mean, every day you have to be prepared for anything. But usually, like, we go in, we open up. I mean, we always start our day with a cup of tea or coffee because, you know,
you have to.
You need it. So as long as the kettle's always on, we're good. But basically we open up and we rely totally on donations from the general public, from churches, from schools, from uniformed organisations, and then from our different supermarket collections, as well as sometimes now we've had to start purchasing and buying in stock as well. But most of our stock still comes from donations. So we could have people coming then from early morning right up until lunchtime, kind of dropping off donations, and then everything that we get gets weighed in and gets sorted into the same item and the similar dates, because we want to be good stewards of everything that we get and make sure that it's being used. And when we put even our food parcels together, we'll look at what makes a meal. So we look at is there something there for breakfast, something for lunch, something for dinner,
not just all
some
snacks or whatever. All the same.
So it's always like a well balanced parcel based on the size of the family, and it'll last them at least 3 days. So we'll sort the food, we'll make up parcels, and then we open for a couple of hours every morning for clients to come in and receive help.
Okay, that's fantastic. So, and as you say, every day is different. You just have to be prepared. Whatever, fantastic. So Lisburn Foodbank have issued some myth-busting local statistics. So into 2023-24, 4 out of every 10 people who were fed were children. 64% of households were first-time referrals. Do you want to talk us sort of maybe through those statistics? You know, because sometimes whenever you maybe, you know, you're not needing a food bank, you've no idea. And I've heard a few people saying a few things, you know, like, it's, you know, it's just for people maybe go in and pretend to be, you know, in need, you know, and that's thinking that's completely not right. So do you want to talk us through those sort of statistics?
I mean, I think one of our biggest user groups is single parents. And so I don't know how our people, the general public, is around the 2-child limit. So obviously anyone who is a single parent probably has reduced capacity in terms of how much they're able to work. So lots of the mums are out working, but they can only work part-time jobs because of childcare issues. And so if they have a third or fourth or more children than that, they don't actually get any government support through the benefits or the welfare system. So we find that a lot of our families coming through are those who are single parents with that, you know, kind of 3 or more children. And listen, you know, it could be any of us. Oftentimes these are, you know, women who have had to flee domestic violence, or they've had a marriage breakdown, or someone has become ill and come out of work that way. You just never know. You know, they say that the average person is only 3 paychecks away from being homeless or needing a food bank themselves.
Yeah.
So, and I would dare say that's an outdated statistic now.
Probably,
I'd say that's a whole lot closer to home nowadays. So, so we see lots of families with children. But like I say, it's not the same people coming all the time. As you said already, 64% are first-time referrals. So that's people who have never had to access charity support before, or at least not our charities support.
Circumstances that aren't maybe of their own, fault. It's just sometimes you say lost their job or, breakdown and things. It's
I mean, the biggest referral reasons would be that ill health. So someone's had to come out of work because they've taken sick, or they've lost their job, and barely a week goes by where we don't hear of somewhere else that's closing down at the minute.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and then we know there's going to be lots of big announcements with the new budget at the end of the month now, and all kind of waiting to hear what happens there. And we know that it'll affect a lot of small businesses by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So
has knock-on effects then with families. Yeah,
absolutely. And as I said already, most of our stock comes from general public donations, but actually in the last year we've had to start purchasing more stock. So our Mythbusters card shows that actually just under 16% of our stock was purchased in 23-24. And again, what we've seen is there's so many families who used to give, and actually they're just struggling that little bit more now.
They're struggling themselves.
And so they're not having to use the food bank, but they just can't afford to give anymore. And yet the need is still as great as ever. So that's where we've had to really rely on that funding coming in to purchase stock, just to make sure that it's a well-balanced parcel, because we want to make sure that we have a good supply of all the items in it. And in our food parcels, we also will give out, some cleaning supplies, some toiletries, things like that, because actually quite often for people, if they can't afford food, they've probably ran out of cleaning supplies or toiletries way before they ran out of food. So, and really, in this day and age, those shouldn't be seen as luxury items. Everyone deserves to be able to clean their home and wash their clothes.
Yeah, and wash absolutely.
Feel fresh and clean.
Yeah, I know.
But, and then I suppose some of our other figures, I mean, we've seen obviously we've already kind of discussed COVID. So the year before, I know the food banks will generally kind of compare a lot of things to the 18-19 year, because that was the last year where things were normal.
Just before, as we knew.
So so we have seen in Lisburn a 93% increase in people having to come and access our services in the 23-24 year compared to the 18-19. So the need is definitely up. And we know, cost of living, the different wars that are going on at the minute, all of those drive prices up. But it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 6 months.
So if someone finds themselves in maybe a situation where they just can't afford, how do they go about getting the support from a food bank? Can they just walk in, or do they need to go through another partner?
Yeah, so we work with lots of referral partners. So even just across Lisburn, we have 80 different referral agencies that we work with. So that'll be the whole rest of the charity sector, basically. The different social services departments. Some of the schools can refer in, some of the churches can refer in. But also what we find is, especially because we see so many people accessing our support for the first time, so they don't have a housing officer or a social worker or any other charity connection. So if you have that, then certainly go to who you already know and get them to refer you in. But if you don't and you don't know how to go about that, you can simply email us, or we have an online form that you can fill in, and we'll contact you if you've never accessed our services. Before. And also what we find is actually, quite interestingly, a lot of people come via the local MLA and councillors' offices. Again, because if you have never accessed support before,
whenever something happens in your life and you just think, what do I do?
Yeah.
Who do I contact? How do I go about it?
Yeah, and you could
Just
have
don't
multiple
know.
issues. So maybe we can help with food and things like that, but you maybe are going to need the support of some of our partner services as well. So, but I think that's the nice thing in Lisburn. The whole charity sector are very good at working together.
Yeah.
So if someone gets referred through, we can help them with food, but then as we chat to them, we'll find out, you need help.
It's all about, isn't it, working together just to try and help and support when needed.
Absolutely, it's great.
Fantastic. So LCC Community Trust also run the Kickstart Social Supermarket.
Yeah.
I know Bethany volunteered in her workplace one quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
Can you tell us sort of what that is and how, who can use it and how that runs?
Yeah, so I think obviously the Foodbank has been going the longest, and it's still our most well-known project, because sometimes we just introduce ourselves as the Foodbank because it's easier. But actually our social supermarket has been going since the end of 2017.
Okay.
So we were one of the first of 5 original pilots in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
And since then they've actually rolled it out to every council area.
Wow.
So now every council is at least in the process.
Okay.
Some of the newer ones are still rolling that out, still
there.
figuring it out. But we're very fortunate here in our council that actually we've been established for quite some time. So we're just looking at more outreach work now to cover the wider council area. But so it is basically, we realise with Foodbank is great for that emergency, that 3-day supply of food. But actually we realise a lot of people need more help than that. They need that person to just get alongside them and journey with them for a while.
Okay.
And so with the social supermarket, you can sign up to become a member, and we'll usually do kind of an 8-week initial sign up with someone just to kind of figure out, like, is this the right fit for them? They can extend if they need more help past that.
Okay.
But we will then, they can get access to food on a weekly basis.
Okay.
They pay a little bit towards that food. And then what we do is we will put a wraparound support system in place. So we'll look at what is all the support that they need. Do they need help with accessing benefits? Do they need help with applying for grants? Is there debt there? And can we help them either through our Community Money Advice Centre or through our partnerships with CAP or Community Advice for Lisburn and Castlereagh?
Okay.
And we'll look at what support is it that they need around that.
Yeah.
We do a budgeting plan with everyone. So what we usually find is easiest, people literally are just so grateful for the help. So they'll just bring in, their bank statements, their bills. Like we've literally had people who have come in with like a suitcase full of unopened envelopes. Like we've had people who they've maybe had a family member who's passed away and they dealt with all of the money. Yeah. And so they just like haven't opened anything in like 2 years.
Yeah, just don't know what they're really scared to even open it.
And so they just come in and our team will just sit with them in their circumstances and just open the envelopes, figure out where they're at, and just let them know you're not in this alone.
There's someone there just to journey along with you and help and support you in whatever way you can.
And it's like, how can we equip and empower people to figure out, like they will have the answer, but sometimes like we all need a sounding board.
Yes.
So it's just being that person to like talk it out with them, figure out like what do they need to do, are there changes that they need to make, are there areas that they could kind of amalgamate or cut back on. And then like sometimes it's just that is such a confidence boost for people that then they actually, someone has helped them figure out their budget and then they feel a bit more confident and hopeful for the future. Then they can go and apply for promotion in work or go and do a course at the college and get a new job or whatever it is they need to do to like become more self-reliant and self-sufficient.
So you really have like a whole, it's not just Foodbank. There really is so much going on, which is absolutely fantastic. This Christmas, BBNI have asked BB companies to try and support their local food banks. Obviously, you're from Lisburn, so you will be the sort of Lisburn, and obviously our BB companies are throughout Belfast and across all of Northern Ireland. How would BB companies find out maybe where their local food bank would be if, they're sort of listening and think, right, we want to help, we are going to collect, we're going to donate. how do I find my local food bank?
Yeah, so I know in the Trussell network of food banks, there's 23 in Northern Ireland. So nearly every kind of town or city has a Trussell food bank. But in the other areas, there's independent food banks as well.
Okay.
So literally, you can go on the Trussell website and just type in food bank near me in your city, or you can just go on Google and type in, like, you know, say your area that you live in and food bank, and you know there is always, that's a really great thing at the minute, and the community of Northern Ireland is just so great, like they want to help, so there is like we can always find a food bank, because sometimes people will contact us, be like, but they don't live in our area at all, so it wouldn't make sense for them to come and access Lisburn, our services. So we'll just like Google and refer them to whoever. And again, the kind of whole network of food banks, whether they're Trussell or independent, are very good at kind of going, oh yeah, we can help that person, we'll take them on.
Yeah, that's really good. And we've sort of suggested to your companies maybe to do sort of food donations or monetary, you know, if they can collect. What's sort of the best way, do you think? Is it through food donations, or as you said earlier on there, you have been buying food, so if they want to donate, then that you can buy what's needed as well? Is that the case? And
I know, like for us in Lisburn, we're always very flexible, because we know sometimes people, they want to like have something, like everyone brings it in on this day and we put it together, and we like they weigh it themselves, or they get their pictures, you know, it's like that act of actually going to the shop and buying something,
going and getting something,
and for some people they're too busy, they do want to help, and so we'll say we'll take your help and support whatever way
it comes,
usually
they make it to good use.
So it's, you know, we put our online links up on our social media pages, but we also say, like, here's our opening hours, or here's where you can drop off, or if you want to come in and get a picture when you're in the food bank, like that's always no problem.
And obviously all the sort of local, so in Lisburn, the local supermarket, you can drop off some food there as well, which is and so what impact do you think then the BBNI companies supporting will have, do you think, on food banks across Northern Ireland?
I think the great thing is that, well, for starters, most of our donations, like over 80% of the donations for our food bank, and I know it's fairly similar across the board, is through the general public. So you know, and especially this time of year, the support that comes in from like that kind of harvest season right through to Christmas is like almost 50% of the stock for the entire year. So it's quite significant, the help that comes through at that kind of harvest and Christmas time for all food banks. But again, it just helps raise the awareness. So the more people that know, and I think like you just never know like what's going on, you know, in the home next door, with your neighbour, with your friend, you know, with the boy across you in BB, from someone in your class, in your workplace, and how they're struggling. And sometimes hearing about the food bank, or even collecting for the food bank, then puts it in the forefront of your mind, and then you start to notice little things and notice, oh, that person hasn't brought lunch with them for a few days. I wonder if they're struggling. Well, actually, maybe I could just bring something extra at lunch and give it to them. And just be subtle about it, but just be more aware then of how or then you can have that conversation at lunchtime, be like, oh, we collected for the local food bank, do you know, it's really easy to get help from them if you need it. And so you can just kind of casually drop it into conversation without, you know, kind of
making it really obvious. I know we were chatting at my mum's yesterday sort of at lunchtime about how years ago she was saying like neighbours would have made a huge pot of say stew and brought like her and, you know, her granny, and she was 3 girls, you know, brought them what was left, and that's what we were just saying, it's not like that anymore, where you know, families and neighbours looked out for each other, where now, as you said there, you maybe don't know that your neighbour next door to you is struggling, because it's just not, it's different now than it was all those years ago, you know. Lisburn Foodbank run a reverse advent calendar, which I done a few years ago. It was a really good idea. Do you want to explain, I know you've launched that, it's sort of maybe starting soon, so do you want to tell us about that, how that runs and what that's all about?
So we basically from the end of this week we will be revealing our official reversal advent for the year. Yeah, so we always say Christmas donations are best given in November.
Okay.
Because we need it all in and sorted.
Yes,
there's
so
lots
that
of
you can give it out
weighing and sorting and date checking that goes on. So that we can get it out as early in December as possible.
Okay.
And then it means everyone is getting the support that they need in time for Christmas. So so we have all the usual Christmas items like your slur, your cranberry sauce, your stuffing mix,
selection boxes.
Selection box, chocolate, sweets, a tin of Pringles because it doesn't get squashed. No, basically everything that ends up on the deals around this time of year, so it works out quite well. And then also just some of our more like core items, just especially some of the stuff that we're a bit shorter on at the minute. So we'll have all of that coming out this week, and like some people will literally go on the 1st of November, buy all the items and drop them in, on the 1st of November. That's absolutely no problem. Some people like to go and get November, it every day. And then we've also had like some people who they've printed it off, never got round to doing it, and then just send a message, I've done a transfer, you go and get the stuff.
Go and buy it.
So that's absolutely fine. Like I say, we'll take the support whatever way it comes.
Whatever way it comes in. Absolutely. Brilliant. So one question, Lynsey, we ask all of our guests, the same question. What is one piece of advice that you wish you had been given when you were younger?
What a great question. What a great question. I mean, I just think like never be afraid to say yes to things. Like take opportunities when they come, and even if you feel like I don't know how to do that, I'm not qualified, like fake it till you make it. Like if you're willing to go in and put the effort in and have a good attitude about things, then like you really can achieve anything. And like I tell my boys all the time, you live in a generation where you can find out the answer to anything in 30 seconds.
I know Google.
On your phone, which is always in your hand. So it's like there's no reason to ever be like, oh, I don't know how to do that.
Just Google
because actually you can Google it and find out and, pretend that you knew all along. That's fine. But just take every opportunity and make the most of it, because like I never thought I would be sitting here CEO of a charity, but and even when I was one of the original volunteers, and when we got our first bit of funding to come on board as staff, I was like, oh no, let someone else do it.
It's amazing just how God works in your life as well, and my sort of favourite Bible verse is Philippians 4:13 to keep quoting it to all young people, because you can do everything with God's strength and help.
Absolutely.
You try it in your own strength, you'll fail, but with God's help, and like as you say, where you are today, through how God has even guided you and given you, and if you'd have said no, you wouldn't have been sitting here. Wouldn't have got to do this podcast with you today. Absolutely. Well, there you go. Well, Lynsey, thank you so much for coming in and joining us, and for those listening today, if you can support your local food bank in any way, please do, either by donations, by monetary, it all will, as you know, will go to a really good cause, and it will be really appreciated. If you need any more information, certainly contact, as Lynsey said, Google your local food bank, or even give us a call in the office here, and we can guide you and show you where to go. So thanks for tuning in and listening, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the BBNI podcast. Subscribe to us on wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to joining with you next time.